Hello, 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 and welcome back to another edition of Fan Talk, your favorite podcast by your favorite fan. That is me, Kyle Brinchley, in the house on this Wednesday, first week of August. Welcome. Fan Talk is a podcast by the fans, for the fans, and it's an exciting time to be a fan. We're talking college football today. More on that in just a minute. Fan Talk is a podcast that you can find anywhere you get your podcast. If you're listening and or watching on YouTube or Spotify, please leave a review, leave a like. I'm anywhere you get your podcast, audio or video versions. Get the sign, the posters, and we're ready to rock. If you're new here, welcome. You found your home amongst fans here in the Fan Talk podcast, and it is August, as I mentioned. College football is what we're going to be talking about today. Be sure to stick around for the full episode to hear some great college football content. We're going to be talking about, we're looking at the top 25 today. They released the top 25, the preseason top 25. Now, you may have opinions on why they're doing that before any of these teams have stepped on the field. Honestly, I think part of it is just to get people excited about college football. Like, none of it is actually quite set in stone. You look at last season's top 25 preseason, was nowhere near the final top 25 at the end of the season, which makes it fun. Any team has a chance to make some noise here in the 2026 season. So the top 25 is revealed. We're going to take a look at that. And we're also going to be previewing the top 5 teams this week. Next week, we'll do teams 5 through 10. And part 3, the week after, we will do local teams. I live in the state of Utah, so we'll take a look at BYU, Utah State, and preview those teams. And by that time, college football will have started, because come Saturday, we are 3 weeks away from college football officially beginning. August 29th, mark your calendars, is the official kickoff to football, week 0, as they call it now. And it's going to be fantastic. The NFL actually has their Hall of Fame game tomorrow night, Thursday the 6th, Panthers and Cardinals. If you don't want to wait until the 29th, you can get some preseason NFL action in. Let's take a look at the top 25. The teams that made this preseason top 25. Here they are. Here's the top 25, the first coaches poll of the 2026 season. As you can see here, a lot of familiar teams that were in the mix last year, a lot of teams that have been good year after year, so it's no surprise. A lot of the teams are up here. Oklahoma's in yellow because I've marked them as a team that I follow. We also have BYU in the top 25 and Utah in the top 25 for all you locals out there, coming in at 21 for Utah and 15 for BYU. So that is the top 25. Of course, no games have been played quite yet. It'll be interesting to see how much it will change throughout the season. So today we're going to be previewing each team in the top 10. Today is part 1, so we'll be doing teams 1 through 5. Next week, we'll do teams 6 through 10. And then the week after, as I mentioned, we'll do the local teams, BYU, Utah, and Utah State. So let's start with number 1. You have Ohio State. Last season, they went 12-2. They won all of their regular season games. They went undefeated in the regular season. Their only 2 losses came in the postseason. Of course, the first one came in the Big Ten championship game against Indiana. So they lost that game, but still got into the college football playoff because they were undefeated up until that point. But once they got into the college football playoff, they had a bye. They got to the quarterfinals. They faced off against number 10 Miami. And as you remember, Miami beats them, takes it to them, and advances, and eventually goes on to play in the championship game. So Ohio State had a very fantastic season last year. Julian Sayin, their quarterback, he was a freshman last year. The thing about Ohio State is they can bring in guys their freshman year, and they can start, and they can be stars. Julian Sayin had a very good year. Of course, they had Jeremiah Smith, probably the best wide receiver in college football. Ohio State's really known for putting together really good wide receivers. It's the wide receiver college, right? Great year last year. Let's look at this year and kind of take a peek at their schedule. 2026, this is their schedule. They're playing against Texas again. This time they're at Texas. They'll be in Austin this time around. That will be a great game. They also have USC on their schedule. USC hoping to be a better team this year. Oregon, they're currently ranked in the top 5 in the preseason. That should be a fun game. And then, of course, Ohio State, Michigan will always be a fun one. They also have Indiana on their schedule. this is actually a really tough schedule. They have to go on the road to play Texas, on the road to play Indiana, the defending champions, on the road to go play the USC Trojans, and then at home against Oregon, and then at home against Michigan. Should be super fun. That is Ohio State. I definitely expect them to be in the top 5 the entire season, if not number 1 the entire season. If they lose, of course, they'll drop. But this is a team that is good quarterback, good wide receivers, good offense, good defense, good coach, a team that's been there before. Expect them to be there in the postseason at the end of the year. I think Ohio State makes the college football playoff. Number 2 is actually Oregon. Oregon is number 2, which is actually kind of crazy to me because, I mean, they've been good in the past, and right, they were the number 1 seed in, 2024. But I just feel like last year they were good, but they just did not show up in the postseason. And this Oregon team is a team that does that, right? They didn't show up in 2024 either. Like, they have a good regular season, but they don't show up when it comes to the postseason. So let's take a look at 2025. How did they do? Of course, they went 13-2. They actually had a really good season. They took out Penn State on the road. Their only regular season loss was to Indiana. Of course, Indiana went on to win the whole thing. They beat USC and Iowa in ranked matchups, and then they took out James Madison, Texas Tech, and then got blown out by Indiana again in the college football playoff semifinal. So they did better. And maybe I should not be so harsh on Oregon and give them some more credit. They did better than they did before. 2026, let's see who they're playing this year. This year, I think they have a little bit more of a favorable schedule. They don't have to play Indiana. They do have to travel to USC to play USC on the road. They do have to travel on the road to play Ohio State. And then they have Michigan at home and then Washington at home. Of course, the Oregon-Washington game's always fun. You never know which way it could go. So some tough games actually on their schedule. Don't count out Boise State. They have to play a good Boise State team. Go on the road against an Oklahoma State team that has been pretty bad, but is kind of revamped with a lot of those players and coaches from North Texas. So could be interesting for the Oregon Ducks. I think the Big Ten is pretty crowded this year, with Ohio State, of course, being at the top. Indiana coming back, of course, the defending champions. Michigan, they're going to be good. USC is trying to prove that they're going to be good. So it's just a matter of fact of how many Big Ten teams are going to make the college football playoff. It does look like a lot of them do play each other. So Oregon, tough schedule. I think I'm leaning into Ohio State more. This is an Oregon team that I very well could see missing the college football playoff. Again, they're ranked very high to start the season, number 2. But if they drop a game, they're probably going to lose at Ohio State. If they drop a game to Michigan, USC, or Washington and come away with 2 or 3 losses, it could be very interesting come the end of the year. All right, move on to number 3. Number 3 on this list is Georgia. Georgia is number 3, 12-2 last year. Gunnar Stockton's coming back as their quarterback. Of course, Kirby Smart is always a very good coach to have, very experienced, knows what he's doing. Let's take a look at their schedule in 2025. Honestly, the SEC, it's pretty much a gauntlet every single year. And say what you want about the SEC. If you think it gets overhyped, you do have to admit there are some good teams. Like if you're playing Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, like every single year, like don't say that's a cupcake schedule. Like, I'm sorry, guys, just don't. Last year, they actually had a really good regular season. Their only loss being at home against Alabama. They went 12-1 in the regular season, beat Alabama in the SEC championship game, punched their ticket to college football playoff, and then probably one of the games of the year, top 10 games of the year, maybe top 5. They lose to Ole Miss, Mississippi in the quarterfinal. The All-State Sugar Bowl, Ole Miss advances to the semifinal, and Georgia goes home. Honestly, very good schedule last year. Let's take a look at the schedule this year. This year, they have a favorable schedule this year. They honestly do. They have a couple tough games. So they have at home against Oklahoma. I do think they'll beat Oklahoma at home. They have to travel to Alabama. That'll be a tough game. They have to travel to Ole Miss for a rematch. That should be a tough game. And then Georgia Tech, that Georgia Tech-Georgia rivalry. You're probably seeing Georgia Tech's cheeks, but that rivalry game has been very close the last 3 seasons. So you never know what's going to happen. So you have those 4 challenging games, and then don't count out Missouri and Vanderbilt. These are some teams that could, pull off an upset. But Georgia, a fairly tough schedule. They come in at number 3. This is a team that I think will be good and will make the college football playoff again. I don't know if they'll win the SEC championship this year. They do have a favorable schedule, like I said. They don't have to play Texas. They don't have to play LSU, but I don't know. Something's just telling me that they're not going to win the SEC championship again this year. I think it's going to be a new team, and they don't have to play Texas A&M, so that's good for them. Coming in at number 4 is another SEC team, the Texas Longhorns. Now, Texas, of course, last year, high expectations with Arch Manning, the son of Peyton Manning, quarterback legend. They went 10-3 last year and did not make the college football playoff. They were one of those teams that were kind of sitting on the edge of the college football playoff. But last year they had a pretty tough schedule. They had to go to Ohio State. They lost that game, beat Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. That was a good win. They beat number 9 Vanderbilt. Of course, Vanderbilt was having a very good year last year with Diego Pavia. So that was a good win. Their other loss was to Georgia. That's a tough loss, but they did beat Texas A&M and then did beat Michigan in the Citrus Bowl. The game that really got them was the loss at Florida. Florida was not a good team. That loss alone knocked them out of the college football playoff contention. If they would not have lost that game, I believe Texas gets in over Alabama, perhaps even over a Miami. They might even put a Texas over a Miami, which would have been absolutely crazy because Miami went on to the national championship. I think in my perfect world, if they would have beaten Florida and only had 2 losses, they get in over a 3-loss Alabama team. A 3-loss Alabama team that did not belong to be there, did not deserve to be there anyways, but the 3 losses kept them out. Let's look at who they're playing this year in 2026. Again, Ohio State. They'll be playing Ohio State at home. If they win that game, that would be huge for their resume. A game at Tennessee that should be difficult. Of course, the Red River rivalry with Oklahoma is always a fun one. They do have Ole Miss on their schedule. That's at home. They do have to go to Baton Rouge and play LSU on the road, Missouri on the road, and Texas A&M on the road. So that's a pretty brutal November for these Texas Longhorns down the stretch. Can they handle it? Can they beat Missouri? Can they beat LSU? And can they beat Texas A&M to finish out the season and punch their ticket to the college football playoff? I think this year they do make the college football playoff. They probably only lose 2 games, maybe 3 games. If they end up losing 3 games, then I don't think they get in. I personally don't think any 3-loss team should get in unless you win your conference. That's just me speaking. But that Texas A&M game, if they lose that game, if they lose the Ohio State game, if they drop the Oklahoma or Tennessee or Ole Miss, I don't know. Pretty tough schedule, but I do think the Longhorns get it done and do make the college football playoff and punch their ticket. Arch Manning leading the way. All right, you still with me? One more team to round out today's top 5 preview, and that is Notre Dame. And Notre Dame, as you remember, did not make the college football playoff last year. They went 10-2. They had a really good season. Honestly, their 2 losses came to really good teams, one of them being the runner-up in Miami and then absolute thriller against Texas A&M. I don't think they're going to regress necessarily because they played very well last year. They opted out after not making the college football playoff. Ultimately, they did go with Miami instead of Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame probably should have got in over Alabama, but they rewarded Alabama for making the conference championship game and ultimately just thought they had a stronger schedule. This is how the Irish fared in 2025. A good win against Arkansas on the road. I mean, Arkansas wasn't that great in the SEC, but still beating an SEC team on the road. USC, that was a good win. And that was pretty much it. They had a pretty favorable schedule. They beat up on a lot of bad teams. This year, they do have a few more difficult teams on their schedule. I think to note right off the bat is Notre Dame at BYU, this October 17th game. That should be a very fun game for both these teams, a very pivotal game for both these teams. These are 2 teams that were on the outside looking in last year of the college football playoff, 2 teams that think they deserve to be in, who are hungry to be in. This might be the game that decides which of these teams make the college football playoff. They also have to play Miami, but they get Miami at home. They don't have to play Clemson. They don't have to play USC. They're not doing that rivalry for the time being. Honestly, a pretty favorable schedule. You got Miami and BYU, probably the toughest games, but don't count out, I guess, a game against SMU or a game against Michigan State. But this is a team that has a very favorable schedule. If they take care of business and don't lose, then they will make the college football playoff. All right, guys, those are the top 5 teams. Again, next week I will do 6 through 10. And the week after I will do the local teams. Again, this is the preseason top 25 poll. So this really doesn't mean anything. This means going into week 1, which teams will have what number by their name. But until we get on the field, until we actually see the product, we aren't going to know. And the first week 0 and week 1, there's not that many competitive games. Even week 2, it's not even until week 3 that we get a lot of competitive games. So for the first couple weeks, let's keep an eye on these teams and see how they perform. If any of these teams drop any games in the first couple of weeks, then that is bad news. Kind of how the college football playoff works is it actually more fortunate to lose earlier in the season than later. It's kind of weird, but like if you lose earlier in the season but then are playing really hot at the end, then the committee might be like, oh, maybe we should put this team in. But you still don't want to lose to a bad team. Like, your only excuse to lose early in the season is if you're like Texas and you're playing Ohio State, There's really no excuse to lose early in the season, but they tend to hurt less than at the end because, people have short memories. But there's the top 25, the top 5 team preview. Again, we'll look at teams 6 through 10 next week. 3 weeks away from college football. Drop your predictions down below. What are you guys most excited for this college football season? Which teams do you think will be good this year? Which teams do you think will surprise us this year? There's always teams that do that. And again, Fan Talks podcast that you can find anywhere you get your podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, please like and subscribe if you like what you hear and want to hear more. Spotify, please leave a review on the show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Fan Talk. I'll see you guys next week for another edition of Fan